Let's take a look at making some simple while loops in Java. To begin with, I need to create a loop control variable that's initialized and declared before we enter our loop. Our while loops in Java begin with the keyword while, followed by parentheses, and opening and closing curly brackets. Inside the parentheses will be our condition that we are checking each time as we go through our while loop. Inside of our curly brackets is what is happening if that condition is true. Inside of our while condition, we need to remember to increase the loop control variable so that the loop is not an infinite loop. We can do this multiple ways. This takes the value in count and adds 1 to it and stores it back into count, but you'll often see this as well. This statement also says to take what's in count, add 1 to it, and store it back into count. Now we'll add a statement after the end of our loop so that we can see when the loop is finished running. Pay close attention to your curly brackets. Everything that you want to happen when the condition is true needs to be inside of the curly brackets. And obviously, whenever you're done with your loop, whatever condition or whatever statement comes next will go outside of the curly bracket. You do not need semicolons at the end of these curly brackets, and you do not need a semicolon at the end of the condition as well. Let's run this, and you'll see that hello displays 3 times, followed by goodbye. This loop can be altered by however many times that we put in our condition. Here it is running 7 times, or if I get really crazy, I could have it run 17 times. But it will run what's inside of this statement as long as this condition is true. Let's modify this so that we get the number of times that we're going to run the loop based on the user input. Now I've created a scanner and I prompt the user for how many times they want to say hello, and I've stored that into my count variable. Now I'm going to start at the high number of however many times they want to say hello, and we're going to go down to 0. So each time through we'll be taking 1 away from count. I'll put in my statements that I want to execute while the while loop is true. And just like before, I can use count equals count minus 1, or I can also do count minus minus, and that will take away 1 each time. Now I have to be careful. I don't want to use both of these statements because this is altering the value of count both times. So this would be taking 1 away from count, and this would be taking 1 away from count. So I'm going to be very careful that I'm only decreasing count by 1 each time through the loop. I'll also add my statement at the end of my while loop so you can see when the loop is done running. Now this program will run based on however many times our user wants to say hello. Next, let's look at running a loop until a Sentinel value is reached. In this case, I want my loop to run until name equals done. So I have to write this a little bit backwards than what we would think. I'm going to use my string methods because name is a string, so I'll have to use my equals or my equals ignore case. I will have it run unless the name is equal to done. Again, here's my basic format. My condition will go inside of my while loop. Now currently this says while name equals ignore case is done, this would work. But really what we want is the opposite of that. We want while name does not equal done. When that is true, we want our program to output. Now I prompt the user to enter another name, and I'm going to capture that name and store it back in my name variable. This is because the name variable is what controls my condition. So if I put it into a different name variable, such as name1 or name2, I would have to change the name each time through my while loop. And that is what makes while loops run so efficiently, is that we don't have to make those changes, and they're flexible based upon what goes inside of the variable. Again, I'll put my finished statement out here so that you can see when the loop is done running. And then we'll run this. This exclamation point is what we use whenever we mean the opposite. So this condition reads, while name does not equal done, we're running what's inside of this while loop. And once name does equal done, this statement turns to true, but because this is in front of it, this is the opposite of true, which is false. It makes this whole statement turn to false, and we exit out of our while loop, and we can print out our final statement. As a recap, first I showed you how to create a simple loop that runs until it reaches a condition. Then we learned how to run until we reach some user input. And then finally we used an example where we run until our loop reaches a specific value, and then the condition turns to false and we exit out of the while loop. Again, the big three were in all three of these examples. We had a starting value for the variable that controlled the loop. We had a loop control variable to determine whether the loop body executes, and we evaluated that either to true or false. And inside of the loop body, we altered the loop control variable so that we did not have an infinite loop. What happens if we have an infinite loop? In this simple case here, I've commented out both these lines that would alter the loop control variable. So when I run this, this turns into an infinite loop. So this is why it's important that we alter the loop control variable so that we do not have an infinite loop. If you do end up with an infinite loop in Eclipse, you can click over here on this red stop, and that will kill the program, terminate it, so that your loop ends, and you can adjust your loop control variable so that you do have a final value for the loop control variable, and you can exit your loops. Don't forget to test your projects and make sure that they're behaving in the manner that you expect the loop to work, and that the counter and the loop control variables are being altered and starting at a place that you need them to start for your program.